Wolves are still winless 8 games into the Premier League season now. I mean, this should have been the banker. Now, by no means am I saying that the Stadium of Light is an easy place to go to. Absolutely not. And I think Sunderland are absolutely fantastic. You don't sit 7th in the league as a newly promoted side after 8 games by not being. However, it is such a poor result for Wolves today, given the fact that, again, like I said, this Sunderland game and the Burnley game are massive. They are absolutely massive. I cannot stress this enough, how big these 2 games are, or probably, were for Wolves this season, to be honest. I think I'm not willing to say they're 100% down. Definitely not. I do think if they act quickly with regards to the manager, which I'm sure we'll get into soon, I think, there could be chance. Obviously, 8 games into a season, 2 points. Should have been 6, if we're being completely honest. Today, should never have even been a point. Wolves didn't deserve a point. They didn't deserve anything, if we're being completely honest, from the game, really. I think Joao Gomez, a really strange performance from him. Someone who I absolutely love, and I've got on to sort of, I've said numerous times on this channel that I really rate him. I think he's could be one of the best midfielders in the league. When he's on it, he really could be, and he really does play like that. But today, I thought arguably it was one of his worst performances, if not his worst performance in a Wolves shirt. The goal is just absolutely abysmal. That many players in the box, and not one player can track the run of Nordi Mukiele, who, by the way, was absolutely outstanding at right back today for Sunderland. I thought he was brilliant, and to be honest, when he's played at centre back for most of the season so far, I thought he was brilliant there. But that shows you the type of quality that Sunderland are bringing in. You're looking at some of the players that Sunderland have brought in. You're looking at Robin Roofs, an unbelievable goalkeeper. Didn't have a ridiculous amount to do today, but again, just been really, really solid this season. The only mistake he's made all season, really, for me, is the Aston Villa goal. But I think he's been brilliant. I mean, Sunderland, the squad, the players they've got in that squad is just significantly better than this Wolves side, really. Nordi Mukiele, as I've said, brilliant. Alderete, brilliant. Xhaka, brilliant. There's so many players in that squad that you look at and you think, it's littered with quality. And we look at this Wolves side and, I mean, yeah, it's just, I think it's fair to say it's not littered with quality. Obviously, Krejci and Bueno, 2 players I've massively, praised this season, really, given the fact that they haven't really played many games together. The more recent games, I think they've been really impressive. Obviously, Krejci scores an own goal today, which sums it up, really. But ultimately, there was no cover for them. There was no protection for that back line. Again, I thought Matt Doherty was pretty dreadful, if I'm being completely honest, and putting that in the kindest way possible. But I don't want to just come on here and rant. That's not what these videos usually are. We usually talk about the game in a quick sum up, as we are now. Obviously, ends 2-0 today, and it's a quick sum up, and then we're going to get down and break down the subs and Vitor Pereira and stuff like that. So let's get straight into that now. Now, as I make very clear in these videos, I'm not going off FOTMob ratings. I'm going off having watched the game and how I view it. Now, if you looked at FOTMob ratings, you'd think that Joao Gomez has had a good game, which couldn't be further from the truth. So we're not doing it for ratings, but this is just easier for me to show you sort of the players, really, and the lineups. Now, as I say, I don't think the lineup was that bad today. I think the starting 11 was actually relatively decent, and to be fair, not a million miles off what I would have gone with personally. But as I said previously, when you look at the quality, if we do a man-for-man comparison in terms of players, now, Sam Johnson's been really impressive this season. I think the goal's poor, it really is, but the defending's poor for Mukiele to get to that point anyway. But Roofs is a better goalkeeper than Johnston for me. Nordi Mukiele is a better right back than Matt Doherty, he just is. Dan Ballard, a better centre half than either of them. Maybe Bueno. For me personally, Alderete is better than both in my personal opinion. Trey Hume again, better than Bueno for me. And then the midfield, I mean, Granit Xhaka's better than anyone there, which is pretty crazy considering how highly I rate Andre and Joao Gomez. But Noah Sadiki as well, by the way, some player. I mean, if you just take a look at his performance here, I mean, defensively, 9 defensive contributions throughout that game, and I just thought he was absolutely brilliant. If you look at the clearances, the interceptions, 5 ball recoveries as well, really, really impressive. And just as a player, I really rate him. I'd say he's better than Munetzi. I wouldn't say he's better than the other 2. Enzo Lefebvre, very good player. I'd argue he's better than... You could argue he's better than both of the wide men in this Wolves side, to be honest, but I personally wouldn't. Bertrand Traore, I definitely wouldn't. Chris Rigg, again, I probably wouldn't. And then Strand Larson, I'd take over Isidore. But you look at the quality off the bench as well, the substitutions as well that come off the bench. And ultimately, the quality, again, it shines through. Now, Fer Lopez, I like a lot, and I don't know what he has to do to get starting minutes in this Wolves side, to be quite honest. Keanu Herver coming on just felt pretty pointless, pretty desperate. Jackson Tachura again, I didn't think he was unbelievable when he came on. I didn't think he was bad by any means at all, though. And Tolu, again, I think he really struggled when he came on. Now, in terms of the players that were unused, I think when you look at the quality again, Adingra, Brobby, Luke O'Nien, Arthur Masuaku and Nathan Patterson. I don't think Patterson's a better keeper than Sarr, but generally look at the quality. And by the way, one thing that I think shouldn't go underestimated about this game is the injuries, injury concerns. Now, Bellegarde, he is not a massive miss, in my personal opinion. It might be off the bench. Hwang definitely isn't a massive miss. But look at the players that they were missing still. Obviously, Reynaldo was a stupid challenge to get himself suspended for this game. Habib Diarra, real good quality. Romain Mundle's got a little bit of quality. We've seen that in the Championship as well. Dennis Sirkin, there is players there, ultimately, that Sunderland could do with in and around the squad, but ultimately they haven't had them, and they've still managed to come out with 3 points against Wolves today. Now, for me, who does it boil down to? Now, the players, don't get me wrong, they haven't been anywhere near good enough today. I completely agree with that. However, we've seen in recent weeks that the players aren't bad. No one's saying that the players are bad. They're just not. The players just aren't bad. As simple as that. Don't get me wrong, some of the signings are very underwhelming. And don't get me wrong, I think, the squad isn't unbelievable. But I think, for me, the buck stops at the manager. And I've made it very abundantly clear in all of my videos in the last probably 2 to 3 months that Vitor Pereira, I like him, but he's limited tactically and he has no plan B. And once stuff hits the fan, which it has towards the back end of last season, obviously Wolves did drop off significantly. They were dreadful throughout pre-season. And of course that is down to the owners and the way in which Wolves got their business done in the summer. But Vitor Pereira, once it's not going well, the plan B doesn't seem to work. Now, you may argue it did work because he's gone to a back four, but ultimately Wolves will still come out of them games with 2 points instead of coming out of them with 0. So, there's a 2-point difference, but there's not a massive difference in terms of ultimately the performances were better. But how long can you go without saying the performances are better if the results aren't there? And the results simply aren't there. And losing to Sunderland today is a huge indication of where I think Wolves will be this season. I would love to see Wolves stay up, and I really do hope they can. And I do think that, I want to make it abundantly clear, I do think they can turn it around. But this is where it gets extremely interesting. Now, where do Wolves pick up their next points? It should be against Burnley next week. Will Vitor Pereira be in charge? That is a big question. I think he probably will. Given the fact that they've given him a new contract, he kind of has to be in charge for, some period of time. But there's only so long you can, go throughout the season with that attitude. So for me, if they don't win against Burnley, I think he's gone. I think there's an argument he could be gone today, to be honest, or in the next week or so. I think it's massively concerning the tactics that are saying. You're watching the same side every week. Somehow the side plays the same whether it's a 5 or a 4, which is mental. Wolves almost reverted to type this week, and it's you would have thought they played a back 5 with the way that they've played tonight. To be quite honest, but for me, it's a really frustrating one. Now I look at the points outside of the Burnley game. The Chelsea game will discard because that's obviously in the Carabao Cup. But then do they beat Fulham away from home? Not for me. Do they beat Chelsea away from home? Not for me. Do they beat Crystal Palace at home? Not for me. Do they beat Villa away? Villa away, Villa are pretty poor, but they're in a decent run of form now. So do they beat them? No, they don't. So I think it's a last chance saloon, to be quite honest. I think it's last chance saloon for Vitor Pereira in this side. The build-up was just slow today. It was passive. It was, to be honest, pretty clueless, dire, whatever you want to call it. It was poor. And I do think Vitor Pereira has massive questions to answer because, as I say, these fixtures do not instill any confidence in me as someone who wants Wolves to succeed. You really don't see how this could get better. Now, I've seen a lot of people like Concept Scouting, for example. He's been very vocal this afternoon, saying that he struggles to see a way back for Vitor Pereira. Obviously, the fans haven't completely turned on him, but surely it can't be very far. The confidence of the players, I mean, it's through the floor, if we're being completely honest. And the tactics just feel desperate. It feels lacklustre. It feels poor. It feels slow. It feels lethargic. It feels outdated. It feels quite antiquated, in my personal opinion. Now, I want to know what you lot think as well, because your opinions are more valuable. You are Wolves fans. You do get it. You do have an emotional standpoint on it, and I want to get you in the comments so we can interact in the comments as well, because I think so many of you are going to have valid points on this matter. It's a really concerning time to be a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan. I'm sure it is, and it's really concerning for me as someone who does not want Wolves to go down and really enjoys seeing Wolves actually playing well. You know, in recent weeks, I've enjoyed seeing Wolves a bit different, a bit more pragmatic, a bit more, intense, a bit more defensively solid, a lot more defensively solid actually. But we just haven't seen that now, and I think today is a real indication of why Wolves are in so much trouble. Now, if we look at the league table, it's I mean, I'm not going to show it on screen because a few of you probably get a bit upset, to be quite honest. It's concerning. Now, I'm not going to laugh. It's not remotely funny, but if you don't laugh, you'll cry, I think. When you look at it, I mean, Wolves are currently, I think West Ham have got 4 points, and I think Forest have got 5. Forest have sacked Ange. They will sort it out, I'm certain of it. I think Burnley are down, and I still think Leeds will go down. So I think Burnley and Leeds are the two that will go down, and then that spot is up for grabs with your West Hams, your Forest, your Wolves, maybe your Fulhams, to be fair, maybe a Brentford in there. But for me, Wolves currently look like a side, in my opinion, that will be the third side to go down. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you all have enjoyed this video, despite the absolutely dreadful result today. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.